This map shows the Strait of Hormuz. It's a narrow maritime corridor, but it functions as the world's most critical economic jugular. Right now, 20% of the globe's entire petroleum trade flows directly through these specific waters. Look at the geography to the north. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps designed this entire 1,600-kilometer coastline as an interlocking kill zone. They essentially placed a naval blockade over the strait to hold international shipping hostage. During a sensitive ceasefire period, Revolutionary Guard fast attack boats and drone swarms began locking on to every merchant ship and naval asset attempting to pass. This was a deliberate effort to stall the waterway while Tehran presented a list of 14 extreme diplomatic demands. For Iran, stalling the world's energy supply was their leverage to demand concessions. They calculated that by threatening the global economy, they could force the United States to return billions in frozen assets and pay out massive war reparations. The situation escalated sharply on May 7th. 3 combat-ready U.S. Navy destroyers, equipped with advanced air defense, were transiting toward the Gulf of Oman. Without warning, multiple hidden launch ramps along the Iranian coast fired their payloads directly at the American vessels. The IRGC immediately executed their asymmetric warfare doctrine, the sky filled with suicide drones, locking onto the ship's decks, while a massive group of speedboats rushed the destroyers on the sea surface, maneuvering frantically like an organized swarm of bees. The logic behind the ambush was rooted in economics. Iran's aim was to cause catastrophic damage to billion-dollar American steel giants by overwhelming them with a barrage of cheap, highly expendable munitions. Had just one of those drones or boats breached the defensive perimeter and sunk a U.S. destroyer, Iran would have established dominance over the corridor. Instead, attacking the U.S. Navy proved to be a historic miscalculation. American forces did not fall into the trap. The destroyers' close-in weapon systems and standard missiles locked onto the aerial targets in rapid succession, while ship-launched Seahawk helicopters hunted the speedboats. Within seconds, every incoming threat was shredded. None of the 3 U.S. ships sustained even a scratch. A few hours later, U.S. Central Command answered the ambush. A logistical network stood up from Al Dhafra Air Base in the UAE. More than 5 Stratotanker refueling aircraft created a continuous fuel bridge over the Gulf, looping in the sky so American fighter jets could loiter over their targets for hours. F-35 stealth fighters glided into the airspace alongside Growler electronic warfare jets. They jammed the IRGC's defense networks, leaving Iranian radar screens showing absolutely nothing but static white noise. By blinding the enemy and asserting dominance over the airspace above Hormuz, the United States instantly flipped the tactical dynamic. The Iranian forces that had just tried to swarm the Navy were now entirely defenseless. This map illustrates U.S. Central Command's strategy for retaliation. Rather than a random barrage, the operation systematically targeted 3 distinct geographical pillars to dismantle Iran's coastal defense network: Bandar Abbas, Qeshm Island, and the Sirak region. The first strike hit Bandar Abbas. It served as the central brain for the Iranian Navy's asymmetric operations. U.S. precision missiles vaporized the logistics depots, command centers, and the hidden silos for Silkworm and Sunburn anti-ship missiles. Next was Qeshm Island, the largest island in the Gulf. Underneath its tourist areas lay a vast underground missile city and concealed launch ramps for Shahed drones. Precision-guided bombs struck the entrances of these concrete tunnels, permanently sealing the arsenals beneath the rock. Finally, they dismantled the Shahed Rabari naval base in the Sirak region. This facility was Iran's eastern gateway to the ocean. Fighter jets hunted down the radar nodes here, leaving Iran blind to shipping traffic approaching from the Gulf of Oman. In a single coordinated air operation, the U.S. military surgically extracted Iran's entire asymmetric defense capability along the strait. They achieved this using long-range precision strikes without placing a single ground troop in danger. In the aftermath of the explosions, intense panic and confusion gripped the Tehran regime. With their command centers reduced to ashes and their radar screens jammed, Iranian military leaders were essentially flying blind. Because the Emirates had suffered a separate missile barrage just days prior, the Iranian administration initially assumed the explosions were UAE retaliation. That assumption quickly gave way to the realization that they were facing the direct, calculated response of the U.S. Navy. Iranian state media outlets immediately scrambled to control the narrative. They broadcasted claims that the massive detonations were merely routine air defense exercises, while baselessly stating that civilian infrastructure had been targeted. The physical destruction of their most strategic coastal fortresses was a severe shock, but the deepest wound inflicted on the regime was the loss of their primary political leverage over global shipping. Behind the military strikes, the White House was executing a specific diplomatic move. They had delivered a one-page memorandum of understanding to Iran through Pakistani mediation just days before the first missile launched. This brief document was a stark counteroffer to Iran's previous demands. When Iran's military decided to fire on American destroyers instead of signing, the Hormuz airstrikes became the brutal, implicit enforcement mechanism for this new agreement. This single page represented a final offer for an end to the conflict. It contained 3 non-negotiable requirements: the immediate opening of the strait, a total halt to the nuclear program, and a complete cutoff of funding for proxy networks like Hezbollah. Iran's asymmetric warfare doctrine has officially collapsed. Their geographical leverage has been neutralized. They now face a harsh new reality: either sit at the negotiating table and sign the memorandum, or watch as the rest of their military assets are methodically erased